Let's go straight to Liam Halligan, economist and author of the brilliant Substack, When the Facts Change. Good morning to you, Liam.
Good to be with you, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight to it. The economy, not in a good state. All the polls show no one expects it to get in a good state anytime soon. But one of the biggest concerns today and over the weekend has been this workers' rights bill that the government is bringing in, Angela Rayner's big set piece, and how much this is going to damage, well, basically, weirdly, the chances of workers getting a job or keeping a job. Tell us what the problem is.
Well, we're both children of the 70s, Julia.
All right, don't shout about it.
We look pretty well for it, don't we? And we remember, because we grew up amidst it, really ghastly industrial relations, millions of jobs, days lost to strike action across the UK economy every single year, where really the trade unions held the government to ransom, leading to statements like "Who runs Britain?" The 1979 election was "Who runs Britain? Is it the government or is it the trade unions?" We're not back there at the moment, but across the public sector, about 50% of workers plus are unionised, and about 25% across the economy as a whole. And Labour wants that increased. Labour wants to give a lot more power to trade unions. And with this employment rights bill, it's being dubbed the unemployment rights bill. It's about to finish its passage through Parliament. What's happening is an awful lot of rights, in additional rights, are being given to workers, to the extent that employer groups, mainstream business leaders are saying, look, this is just going to lead to massive unemployment. Unemployment's already gone up sharply since last July, since Labour took office. Their increase in employer national insurance, which I know you talk about with small business people all the time, has led to a fall in hiring. And if you have, unfair dismissal rights from day one, instead of a 2-year probation period, if you have rules that allow trade unions to come into your workplace, private sector companies, once a week at any time that they like, then all of that is going to put employers off. It's going to be bad for workers.
That's the thing. I understand people want to protect people, particularly the idea of people being exploited on zero-hours contracts, although most people are happy to work on zero-hours contracts. But certainly, a youngster I know who was on a zero-hours contract turned up for a shift. They ended up actually closing down the business for various reasons. They would have been covered by insurance, but everyone got paid for 2 hours instead of 7 hours, even though they turned up for their shift. And there's no legal right. We want to have reasonable rights for people to be treated fairly. But we've also all known people who've been hired who apparently do a very good interview and then turn out to be useless or a nutcase. I've certainly worked with a few of those over the years, and frankly, I'm not entirely sure I want them to have 100% the same rights as someone who's been there for a year or 2 years on day one. This is basic stuff. Is the issue that the Labour people pushing this, they never actually run a business themselves?
You and I have discussed this a lot, Julia. There's no one at the top of government that has any genuine hands-on business experience, no one who's actually built a business, no one who's had to make payroll. They're generally sort of public sector princes and princesses that, the money just appears in their account because they turn up and go to meetings. But we know,
Zoom.
we know working from home makes you much more productive, all that time grazing from the fridge. Now, we know that the backbone of the British economy, where most of the growth is, where 2/3 of the employment is, where so much of the innovation is, our drive comes from our small and medium-sized enterprises. You have all kinds of small and medium-sized enterprises who don't tend to be run by political people. They tend to be run by pragmatic people.
And who can do maths.
Who can do maths, because if they don't get their maths right, they can't make their mortgage payments. They can't go to the supermarket and get their weekly shop. Very self-reliant people. And they are now warning loudly that if this bill goes through without the amendments that the Lords have put on it to strike a better balance, we want a balance between workers' rights and the ability of entrepreneurs and firms to hire people. Unless the balance is struck in a way that's better than what the unionised Labour leaders want it to be, then we are just going to end up with a lot more unemployment. Unemployment rights will resemble, the country they'll resemble most if this bill goes through, Julia, is Spain, right? Spain, great place, many Spanish friends, love it. The trouble is Spain has got 10.5% unemployment and a chronic level of youth unemployment. Do we want that for our young people? Do we want that for our economy? What's progressive in that, Angela Rayner? Why does
That's the sad thing. But what's interesting is some of the biggest critics of this now, not just business groups, but the Resolution Foundation, the left-wing think tank, used to be headed until the last election by Torsten Bell, who's now one of the Prime Minister's closest advisors. So we'll see. We've literally got about 30 seconds, but the mansion tax, no, it's not going to affect most of us. Most of us do not live in £2 million homes. But the idea of a 1% bill for every everything over the value over 2 million, a tax on the wealthy, that's not going to go down well with a lot of people, though, even people who don't have those homes themselves.
It's going to be extremely divisive. It's going to raise very little tax, actually. Yeah. The governor of the Bank of England, former governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, has just said, instead of trying to get, £500 million here, £500 million there, stop, Rachel Reeves, think about what you're doing and understand we're now at a point where the more tax you put on the economy, the less growth you're going to get. You're going to drive the economy off the cliff.
She's literally going in the wrong way. But again, also, who decides what price a home is worth? I mean, it could be worth something to one person. If you can't sell it for that price, who's going to value at that price? And how do they know? What if you've done a load of work on your home and it's increased in value? Well, what, they have a right to inspect your home? I mean, we are in some really dodgy territory there, aren't we? Liam Halligan, Economist, thank you so much. Always so brilliant. Always, he understands it all. That's the important thing.